It's Thursday, October 16, 2014. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 92. Your last call for tech news of the week. Tonight, Jimmy offers his own streaming-only plan, and I show Gamergate the D. But we start tonight with another tech high holy day.
No.
We had kind of had this
holy day. There's middling holy day.
This is more this is kind of a more ordinary Saints Day or your feast of like Corpus Christi, kind of thing. Not like your big.
I've been to Corpus Christi.
Like not your big high dollar ones like your Pentecosts or your Easters or your Christmases. This is kind of the low to middling ones. It's Corpus Christi. This is a perfect example of what level of feast this might be. So this is fascinating, yeah? So Apple had an announcement today. Today, actually, October 16th, 2014.
This is hot breaking news, people.
This is hot breaking news 12 hours ago. So they announced a lot of individual things, none of which individually were possibly worth all the attention that they received, but in total, they represent Apple does two announcements a year. The iPhone one that's very focused, and then
oh, you forget the one that they do in June, which is just the one that comes before this one where they say, and we're going to release all this stuff later this year.
Well, no, that's the software one.
Yeah.
So that one. So there are two focused ones. There's software and there's iPhone, and then there's other things that we haven't talked about yet.
Large pot that everything gets thrown into.
This used to be the iPod announcement every year, is what this is replacing. So it's the iPad, iPad Mini, and Mac announcement is what it's become. So let me run down what we've got.
And OS release.
OS release. So OS 10 Yosemite. Out now, go download it, it's free, as is the latest version of iWork. Okay, moving on. That's old news. Apple Pay starts on Monday. Yes, Monday. So start paying with things with your cell phone. You tap
and they
it.
added 500 banks to that since their announcement in September.
Yep. There will be new iPads. Big surprise. I know. One of them's not all that new. The iPad Mini 3, where they kept the screen, the processor, and the camera the same.
And the chassis.
And the chassis. All they added was Touch ID. I usually yell at journalists.
And color.
And they added gold and different memory units. But fundamentally, and I don't say this lightly, this is the same device as last year. This is not the 3. When they changed the processor, I declared a new device. This is not a new device. And it's not because the form factor didn't change.
It's important that they kept the iPad Mini with Retina, also known as the iPad Mini 2, in the lineup at $300.
So for $100 more, you get Touch ID and gold. Or for $100 less, you get the same device.
Minus Touch ID.
And
you get Apple Pay.
Yeah, but on your tablet, again,
you get NFC.
You might be history's greatest monster. Yeah. So don't buy that one. Buy last year's one for $100
Guess what? Our buying advice from this time last year remains the same.
The iPad Mini with Retina display, now known as the iPad Mini 2, still the iPad Mini to buy anyways. And possibly the iPad to buy, although the iPad Air 2, which might also be called the iPad 6, depending on how you like to count. Numbering's hard. It was the iPad 2, the iPad with Retina display, the new iPad.
No, that was the new iPad.
That was the new iPad, and then there was
the iPad 4.
No, that was not called the iPad 4. That was simply called the new iPad. That was iPad 4th generation. They have now taken to calling them the iPad 3 and the iPad 4, but that was not their official designations at release.
Hey, and they were revolutionary, let me tell you.
There was that one time. That was so bad. Resolutionary.
It was on the home screen.
Yeah.
of Apple.com.
No, and then that's the one you and I stood in line for, and so we
Yeah.
were surrounded by resolutionary banners. That was
Like, you
bad.
got to be freaking kidding
It was a
me.
great device, though.
It
So
was.
the iPad
Air
Air 2 is 6.1 millimeters thick, which is an 18%.
6.1 millimeters thin.
Thin.
It says so in all the marketing materials.
Right. So that's why I said thick. Which is 18% thinner than the previous model. It includes a new processor, the 8MX, which is basically just an
A8X.
A8X, whatever. It's the X. A8X, which is basically just a scaled up version of the one that's in the iPhone. It should be pretty good. The one in the iPhone's pretty good. Last year's iPad was pretty fast.
They're claiming a 40% increase in graphics performance.
They basically put the camera. Yeah, but yes, they are. They basically took the camera that's in the iPhone 6 Plus and stuck it into the iPad Air. Again, with history being history's greatest monster. So you can do all the slow-mo stuff and all the whatever.
Although they did say this is a logical in the announcement. I swear to you, they said putting a camera and using your iPad as a camera is really just a logical thing
Because
to do.
it's your best viewfinder.
Because it's your best viewfinder. And
You
I
can
was
really
like, you,
see the picture you're taking.
you can go to hell.
Yeah, you still look like an idiot. So that's it. Really, that's it. It's thinner. It's faster. It comes in gold. They're doing the same thing like they did with the phone, so it goes 16 gigabytes, 64 gigabytes.
They're doing that with the Mini as well.
Yeah, and so the Mini 3 starts at 400. The iPad Air starts at 500, and it goes on sale next Friday. Pre-orders start tomorrow. So today, for me,
When you're listening.
when you're listening / when I'm recording this.
I do have let me make sure my phone's on silent. I do have a notification set for my reminder of what I need to pre-order. But anyways, continue.
So there's that. And now for the interesting thing.
The thing that Trey always gets excited about.
They revved the Mac Mini, which is just good that they recognize that it still
It had
exists.
been a long time.
Well, right, and at least it's not like the iPod Classic where they just sort of stopped talking about it. Although they've now
Until
just
they
sort of
killed
stopped talking about the entire iPod line. Which,
They killed the iPod
I know.
Classic.
I know. What I want is an iPod Touch based on the iPhone 6 Plus. But that I may be the only one, considering now you can get.
6 Plus.
Well, think about it. You don't really need it because for $250, you can get an original iPad Mini. So who needs an iPod Touch at this point? Same price point, effectively, for a full tablet that wasn't bad at its time. Not great, not a Retina display, but still, $250 gets you an entry-level iPad. If that doesn't sound the death of the iPod Touch, I don't know what does. Okay, so the actual interesting thing. So Apple has a thing with putting what they call Retina displays in everything. Phones, and then tablets, and then laptops, and now desktops. They are going to put out a Retina display 5K iMac. Drop the mic, walk off stage. 5,000 pixels by some other dimension.
Great journalism there, Trey.
All that matters is 5,000 pixels by
I got this.
some
I
other.
got this.
You got this?
I got this.
It has 61% more pixels than
2888.
Thank you.
5,120 by 2888.
That's 14.7 million pixels, or 61% more pixels than 4K. It has a whole bunch of technology apparently to make this work, but for $2,500, you can get the world's what they're claiming to be the world's highest resolution display.
They're probably right.
Well, they're a publicly traded company, so there's only so much lying they can actually do publicly. It comes with at the SEC. So Jimmy, I've kind of tipped my hand as to what I think matters in this. What do you think matters in this announcement?
I really want the cinema display version of that.
You're not wrong about that.
That was actually I think I saw on The Verge they had an article that was like, why is Apple's $1,000 screen stuck in 2011?
Because they don't care about it.
Right.
Because they've partnered with Sharp for 4K displays. I hope this comes out, or even like a 30-inch version. Back in the day, I had a 30-inch cinema display in my editing bay in college.
Awesome.
Those were incredible.
They still are. They're still amazing screens, but they're old.
They're old. The
but no
connectors are
one-
wrong. They're real thick.
Yeah.
You can cook an egg on the back of them. I mean, they had some downsides. They kept us warm in winter. And in the editing farms at William and Mary, we were warmed by the heat coming not off of our processors, but off of the back of our cinema displays.
Let's see what else. I always find it interesting what people define as a full day worth of battery.
10
the
hours
iPhone-
is what Apple has always said is a full day. It's
But
10 hours.
I do remember the MacBook Air. The most recent rev it got was the 13-inch would do 12 hours.
Yeah. But I
No.
mean, what they've done with the iPad consistently is just keep the battery life constant.
They just shoot for that 10-hour mark,
Right.
and that's kind of the benchmark for most manufacturers. I mean, honestly, I don't care about any of this because I'm not going to buy any of these things. But I think that the most interesting thing from a third-party perspective is really the iMac, the fact that they revved it and they did the 5K display in it. I don't think the iPad Air 2, it's incremental. It's very impressive.
It's the thinnest iPad we've ever made,
It's the thinnest tablet ever.
according to them. Again,
According to them. Now, that's in the given form factor. They're really good at
slicing and
there's-
dicing that so they
yeah.
don't get in trouble with the
so
SEC.
like, for example, the Sony Xperia tablet is usually like the thinnest one out there. And I'm going to do that thing that Trey always says I shouldn't do.
Which is research live.
Find it on the interwebs. But it's ridiculously thin. This takes way too many clicks.
Yep.
Well, it's a quarter of an inch thick. I don't have that in millimeters.
God, what is that in millimeters?
I'm just going to click on it again and see if I can find it. Oh, it's 6.4 millimeters.
See, yeah, 0.3 of a millimeter.
Yeah. But that's the same class of screen, so
Sure.
they probably can't get away with that if it wasn't. But that's the thing that like Sony's been eating their lunch all along, where Apple would go, "Oh yeah, we've made it thinner," and Sony's still like, we're the thinnest.
Yes, but who's selling devices? Like
Not Sony.
Not Sony. I mean, Sony's selling insurance and video games.
But the other thing I think is really interesting about the whole announcement was how much like how much poking fun at their competitors they did.
And how
It seems like it was more this year than it was last year. Because
actually-
like with the whole more that it was really blatant, not that
they've always done the
Jobs was
adoption.
really-
They've always done the adoption. That was 3 years ago. I mean, he has not done a keynote in 3.5 years.
Right. Well, no, but Jobs was definitely the one that like he did that.
Yeah.
But he would always do it like underhandedly.
Well, no, they've always done like compare the adoption of iOS to the adoption of Android, which
Because it's hilarious.
well, it's hilarious, and it shows how badly the carriers are failing. Because that's the carriers. If it was up to Google, they would like, this can run it. Like, let's just do that. But the carriers sell phones past their prime and then don't update them because it's not in their interest, and that's controlled by the carriers. One of
Right.
the key things about living in the Apple universe is, update available, I can have the update. Now, you may wait a little longer, and updates come at a regular schedule, and everyone gets them at the same time, and it's September, middle of September, I'm going to be updating my phone.
Well, and the other interesting thing I thought was it was more the iPad to PC manufacturers.
Well, there are
sales
now.
first.
That's not total BS because there are some PC sales trackers that do include tablets,
Right.
and some don't. So Apple has for years been making that move of
Because it makes the numbers look good.
Well, it means they've sold 70 million rather than 18 million or whatever it is. I mean, they sell a lot of Macs, but they're still not.
They still a buttload of iPads.
But they sell a ton more iPads, and they're only the world's biggest PC manufacturer if you include iPads.
Right.
They're doing okay, and they are. They make the point they are growing in market. They're growing their PC market where everyone else is losing PC market. If you aren't Lenovo or Apple or Microsoft, I'm not entirely sure why you make PCs anymore, unless you are selling them in bulk to corporations. Because
that right there.
Yeah, but I mean, the consumer market is kind of there are three players, and two of them are big, and one of them I'm mostly just interested in. I get that like HP and Dell and Asus and Acer all sell PCs, but they're not interesting in any way.
No.
They are.
Well, they've kind of stopped trying, honestly.
Well, it's been totally commodified. And I think they're no longer trying to even make the case that they're not commodity products. Whereas I think Lenovo, Apple, and Microsoft are very much like, no, we can still do things in this space. Like a Retina 5K display or a Surface Pro 3. I think both these are...
Or like the first hybrid, which was the Yoga.
Or now the Yoga with a projector in it.
Yeah, the Yoga, we didn't talk about that, but there's a Yoga tablet that has a projector in it's kind of got this rounded. So if you remember the Sony tablet Xperia Z or X, I think it was, that had the fold over that was like a magazine. It's the same kind of general form factor, except in this round piece is a projector.
Right, it's pretty cool. It's actually pretty cool. It's a Pico projector.
It's a Pico projector, and it's like $400. Like,
it's not real powerful, but hey, it's a gimmick. But it's a gimmick that I'm actually kind of interested in.
It has subwoofers.
Right,
it has a subwoofer.
Yeah, it has a JBL branded subwoofer. That's just interesting. I mean, to me.
But yeah, no, that iMac is the most interesting thing that was announced today.
I think, to me,
they'll also sell the least of them of all of the things they announced.
Who cares? I was sitting at work. I was watching a blog move by, and I saw it announced while I was sitting at work on my 27-inch iMac. And I have a pretty nice, new-ish 27-inch iMac. It's one of the real thin ones. It's a Core i7. I really like it. But I was like, where's my capital expenditures budget? Where is my cap? How much can I spend in CapEx? And does that lead up to $2,700? Because basis at 25, and I wanted the Core i7 so I could do some editing on it. It turns out I don't have room in my CapEx budget.
That's unfortunate
for
really.
that. Yeah, we had to replace some screens and stuff, and I think that's eaten into my capital expenditures, such that I won't be able to buy this thing, which is really disappointing. Because the way I think about it as an editor, as a video editor, is not that I'm actually editing in 4K or have anything anywhere, whether work or home, which is also work, that can display or output 4K. Doesn't matter. Let's just think about this for a second. Since it's actually 61% bigger than more pixels than 4K, you can have a full 4K preview screen and then your timeline. So you can both edit and preview you can preview in real time in 4K. And that's really interesting. Rather than having to have a second monitor, which is usually you have your people who edit that way, have a preview monitor and then your timeline monitor. Here on this single monitor 27-inch device, you can have a full resolution preview screen for 4K video.
Right.
And a processor that could possibly do some 4K editing. If you're really serious about 4K editing, of course you're going to be in the Mac Pro world.
Right.
As I think...
Well, and that's why I think that the cinema display version of this is more interesting.
Right, and probably that's where it's going, because you got to think the margins on this cannot be good, because that monitor it's got to be like a several $100 part, right? Like they had to develop new technologies to make this screen possible.
Yeah, there's a great article over at The Verge about kind of what's all running this thing and how that's getting done, and it's impressive.
So I don't think Apple meant this to be the story. They want us to be talking about iPads, but to me, iPads have become tablets are kind of a commodity product because they're not changing that much year to year. Oh, it's thinner. Oh, it's faster. We could almost be at a point where this is a press release. Like they don't do a big announcement when they bump the processors on the MacBooks anymore.
No, they don't.
iPads to me are almost getting there because you're not really changing the product. I think the iPad Air was worth some explanation. Clearly, they don't care about the iPad Mini right now at all. They realized we had talked about this before the show. I think they've realized that it was having the same Hell, yeah, here's the story. Like, they kept the processor the same in the iPad Mini, because what we've been saying for a year now is, why do you want the iPad Air? You get the same
You get all of the internals of the iPad Air in the iPad Mini, with a smaller form factor.
Smaller form factor and cheaper.
And cheaper.
I think they realized that, and so they upped the iPad Air and basically did nothing to the Mini.
And so, like, the reason why they did that last year was really obvious. They wanted to get as many people onto the 64-bit operating system as they could. Yeah. And so that the way they can start pushing that. Well, with the iPad, now they have the iPad Air all on, and the iPad Mini previous generation all on the 64-bit. They don't have to rev that processor this year if they don't want to. They can wait till next year.
Right, and they probably will. It's Apple. It was not a particularly magical one.
Although they said magical a lot.
They said magical a lot. They also tripped over their lines a lot. I was surprised. It just wasn't as polished. I mean, it was only a month since the previous one.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, this is a very strong lineup going into the holiday. I think they're going to
sell well.
Those, and they should. Like, I don't
think
they're good.
They're good devices and they'll sell well.
Right. The iPads don't interest me, but if you're looking to buy a tablet, I'm only going to steer you one of two ways. If you need to do work on it, Surface Pro. If you don't need to do work on it, iPad. Done. And actually, some of the photo apps that and video apps they previewed, I look at that and went, okay, finally, this is a photo app that does what I need it to do. Again, it's still on a tablet that I can't put a flash drive into, so this is entirely irrelevant. But the apps themselves are powerful.
For an SD card.
Right.
Or like,
like a computer.
Like my laptop.
Like my tablet, my Surface Pro. But Apple wasn't the only ones with an announcement of big things.
Yeah, so this week we also had announcement's not really the right word, blog post from Google.
They're not a bunch of savages.
Because they're not a bunch of savages, and they don't hate the media, apparently. They just released all of the news of their new Nexus devices via blog post. So with our new Nexus devices from Google, we have three. We have the Nexus 6, the much anticipated 6-inch phablet, larger version of the Moto, the 2014 version of the Moto X, made by Motorola. It got a QHD screen, 6 inches. It's got the same kind of curved form factor as the Moto X, has a little dimple in the back, everything you would expect. Retail for $650 off of $649 off contract, and be available to pre-order at the end of the year. Expected to be released November 3rd. In addition to that, we also had the Nexus 9. The Nexus 9 is by HTC. It is a 8.9-inch screen, and it has the same kind of rubberized back. Now, both of these devices have the same kind of rubberized back and an aluminum kind of rim around the sides, like very much like the Samsung Galaxy Alpha has. It's a rubberized back, and it has the boom sound speakers. It's a weird resolution. I can't remember what it is. Let me pull up the blog post. It is a weird resolution. It's like 25. It's a 4:3 aspect ratio. So they're losing the 16:9 that they had on the Nexus 7. And it's going to be available for pre-order tomorrow, starting at $349 or $399 for a 16 gig and $479 for a 32 gig. And its release date is also November 3rd. They also announced Android L Lollipop. Android 5.0.
Yep, I'm excited.
And part of Android, so the most interesting thing about Android 5.0 is really they're pushing everything being uniform across all platforms, which is the big thing for 2014. You have Continuum from Apple. You have...
No, other way around. It's Continuum from Microsoft. It's Continuity from Apple.
Oh, shit. It is Continuum from Microsoft and Continuity from Apple.
There you go.
And then I can't remember exactly what the name they used for the Lollipop kind of synergy. They're pushing the Android being be together, not the same is their slogan right now for Android.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I I can't find the name of this stupid thing, but it has consistent design across devices. It has a call that Google calls material design.
Yeah, but this is just going to get ruined by skins anyways, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
why? I mean,
It
except
only
for
matters for pure Nexus
so
devices
for
and Google Play
Motorola's,
editions.
Google Play editions, and Nexus devices.
Although it's interesting that as Google is adding more features, those features aren't being changed as much by carriers. So, like for example, if you look back at way back at like ice cream sandwich, that's where you had heavy skins on things because people wanted things out of these phones that they weren't getting from Android. And
Yeah.
so manufacturers like HTC and Samsung really wasn't in the game at the time. HTC and Motorola were pushing these Moto Blur and
Which was the
Sense.
worst.
But Sense was like great, and Sense was even better than pure Android. And it was like, why would you want pure Android? Sense is awesome. But then Google started iterating and pulling in these features from Sense and from all these other kind of and the good features of all of them. And I remember when they added the butter, so like they had the problem of Android being slow, and so because it would keep trying to run all of the processes in the background whenever the user interacted with the device, and so it would be slow. And so now what it does is when you touch the device, it stops everything else, says, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And you do whatever you want to do, and then it keeps doing its stuff in the background. So, and that was a big thing for them. So the Nexus 9, I'm gonna probably get one. I'm trying to decide whether I want it in white, sand, which is their
Ooh,
kind of gold color, or black. Those are the three colors it comes in. I think both of those devices come in white, sand, or black. So the third device, which I think is simultaneously the most interesting and the dumbest, is
Yeah.
the Nexus Player. So the Nexus Player is the first device to run the Android TV platform,
Not
which
to be confused
is
with Google TV.
almost literally a rebranding of Google TV because Google TV was so bad. So Android TV is designed. So the Nexus Player is $100 and is designed to compete directly with really the Amazon Fire TV
Right, which
because
I'm
it comes
okay
with a remote that has a speaker or a microphone in it, so you can say things to it and it'll look it up. And it also has a gamepad for $40 you can buy additionally. It has a more powerful processor than either the Roku or the Apple TV. It has an on-screen environment, much like all these other devices, not like the Chromecast.
Right.
It's looks like a hockey puck. It's round.
It's rounded even. It's that.
It's round. It's very short, but it's round. But they don't have the apps. They have 25 apps at launch, and of those 25, probably half of them are Google apps.
Does it have the Chromecast kind of functionality?
It does have the cast ability.
Okay.
What they're really looking for is they're trying to be like Ouya, really, much the same way that Amazon Fire TV is trying to be like Ouya, in that you're trying to make it so you can play lightweight games like you would on your phone on your television.
Right, but this is, I mean, Sony this week released the Vita TV, or rebranded PlayStation TV,
Right.
which is this same idea from PlayStation, except you can actually put Vita cartridges into it to play them.
And it's also $99.
And it's also $99. If you're in this space, if you want to
Sony
game,
is doing. I think Sony is doing some of the most interesting things in the gaming space right now because on their Xperia tablets they have the Vita Play or whatever it is, whatever their branding of it is, where like how on the Vita you can play games on your PlayStation
remote
4.
play, yeah, you can do that on the phones as well.
You can now do that on the Xperia Z3 and the Z2 tablet.
So I mean, in this space, what makes sense is Sony, because if you know if you're doing this for gaming, you want to know who you want to buy from, a gaming company,
gaming console maker.
someone who makes a gaming console and is very interested in cultivating a games ecosystem. So on the PlayStation TV, you're going to be able to play back catalog PS3 stuff streaming. You're going to be able to play back catalog PS1, PS2 classics. You're going to play a good chunk of the Vita library. And you're going to be able to put in a good number of Vita cartridges directly into it. You're also going to be able to remote play your PlayStation 4. So your PS4 is in one room. You can be playing it in another room. That in addition to all the streaming apps that you would kind of want. I use my PS3 as a streaming device. It has the services that I want, and this just brings those over. Sony is an entertainment company, unlike Google, unlike Amazon's kind of getting into it, Google's kind of getting into it. Sony has like full-on motion picture studios and game
right.
studios.
No, they make stuff. They have a music studio, like
right.
They make stuff.
So they make stuff. They've got, TVs, game consoles, a whole ecosystem and tablets and phones. I mean, they've got fingers in more pies than Apple. Even more than Samsung in a way, at least in the stuff that we cover. They don't make like refrigerators the way Samsung does, but that's not interesting to me.
It's because Samsung literally makes everything.
So if you live in the Apple ecosystem, it makes sense to own an Apple TV. $100, and AirPlay is just getting even better with continuity. So do that. If you're not totally into that ecosystem, if you're living a lot of other places, and you're not worried about screen mirroring, PlayStation TV. All day long.
Yeah.
It's the same price with a real games ecosystem. The controller that you can get with it is just a PS3 controller.
Right, it's the DualShock controller.
It's a DualShock. That's a decent, not the best, but so much better than the Amazon one.
It's a real controller.
Again, it's games from a real gaming company, and there's plenty of lightweight indie titles on the PlayStation Store that you'll be able to play on this. But again, they're really interested in it, and they don't have to worry about people developing apps specifically for this thing. They already have a television console. They have many generations of 4 of them, in fact. And they helped develop one for Nintendo.
Right, and they can do things like with Assassin's Creed, where they had a Vita version of Assassin's Creed that was specifically designed for Vita. Like, they can make partners and deals that Google can't or doesn't because they have the pre-existing relationships.
Right.
So let's see what else I'm going to hit the high points on the rest of the stuff. So that thing is kind of interesting, but not really that interesting. The thing I'm the most interested in is the Nexus 9. The Nexus 9 also, I forgot, is running a 64-bit NVIDIA Tegra K1 processor.
Yep.
It also has a, let's see, hit the high points here. It's 4:3 aspect ratio, QXGA, so 2048 by 1536 resolution.
Not bad.
Gorilla Glass 3, and it also has an 8 megapixel rear camera, which no one cares about, really. The other thing that's interesting is they're kind of pitching it as a productivity device, and by that I mean they are literally the keyboard case. There's a case that comes with this, and it's a keyboard case, or it doesn't come with it, but it's available for it. It's a keyboard case. And it's a magnetic, and the specifications on this keyboard case are not great, but it'll be available. But they've kind of
thought about it along the same lines of the Surface.
Yeah, and so it's going to be available. It's not nearly as good looking as the Surface, of course, but in that sense of having the case and all of that. But what I realized today as I was looking at TeamViewer on my phone is for most of the stuff that I would do on my laptop, if I had something like this with TeamViewer or any remote desktop app that I could get to this computer I'm sitting at right now, this is the most powerful computer I own.
Sure.
And this is the computer that I like to do all of my... So I have the ability, I have Lightroom installed on my laptop. I have the ability to run Lightroom, and that's really handy for when I'm in the field, when I'm away and I want to be able to pull pictures off and quickly process them. But in most cases, because I only have one camera that has an SD card, I wait until I get home and I plug it into this computer, and I offload it, and I process them all here. So everything of my life is processed on this computer. And so for lightweight stuff that I would do on the go, because most cases I'm going to have a Wi-Fi connection. But this does not work for you.
No, this doesn't work for me.
No, it does not work for you.
Always my objection to this is, that's great.
But I'm saying for me,
anything that requires that, anything with the phrase, if I had an internet connection, I stop listening. So-
Right, but
No,
that's
but-
because you're not a normal person.
No, I'm not a normal
You
person.
do not have a normal use case. You need the most powerful thing you can carry with you, which is why you have a
MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro with
That's why I spend every 3 or 4 years. I spend $3,300 on a laptop. Like that's
because you're crazy.
like I am crazy, but I deal with that in appropriate ways. I've been told. My only concern with that is, I mean, theoretically, this would probably handle 80% of what you'd need. Call it. But for a few $100s more, you can have that 100% solution in a Surface Pro 3.
No, for twice the price.
Twice the price?
It's twice the price. This is $400.
Yeah. What's the price of the keyboard case?
I don't know.
Okay, well, let's call it 500 with the.
Well, if you assume it's probably not 500, it's probably. If I was them, I would price that about 80. It's probably where it belongs.
Sure.
Sure,
so you're about $500 in.
But still, it's still twice the price.
Yeah, but for what you're bringing up specifically, I wonder if that price difference is worth it for the additional functionality. That this is not, anytime you're talking about one of these ARM-powered tablets or iPad-esque tablets, and you're using the phrase productivity.
Oh, I think the productivity in this thing's a joke. Like,
but even
I think
like,
it's interesting that they're pitching it as a productivity device.
But even like home productivity. So like you're talking about using TeamViewer. Does this have a USB port? Can you hook up a mouse to it?
No.
Then no. If you're going to spend that kind of money, get a Surface Pro 2. Then at least you're running something that has a USB port, has real USB drivers, not as extensive as full Windows.
For productivity.
For productivity.
I would agree with you.
Or for any of this kind of use TeamViewer or any of that. If you're looking for a tablet to be a tablet, which again, I think is somewhat, I mean, I have a tablet that
I'm choosing to keep the smaller phone and to get a tablet is kind of where I'm at with this thing.
I mean, and I think that's reasonable, but don't for a second think that this is your solution to your productivity.
Oh, I don't have a productivity problem. I have a full powered desktop at work. I have a full powered desktop at home, and I have a very good laptop for when I need stuff on the go.
I have all of those things, and yet I live in a sea of devices. Jimmy,
well, you have a unique.
Surrounded by. I mean, this just I'm littered in devices.
Oh my god!
You know, I have at one of my jobs. I have
You
a
have
full
a litter
power
of devices.
It's too many devices. Okay, so moving on from devices that anyone could conceivably buy to a device that few people will ever buy. Elon Musk had recently teased that he was about to unleash the D or drop the D. There was a D. And what the D or it's time for the D, or it was really unfortunate. So what was announced was the Tesla Model S P85D. This is their sedan with dual motors. So all-wheel drive. So normally, a normal...
And remember, this is an electric car.
This is an electric car with 2 electric motors. One powering the rear wheels, one powering the front wheels. This allows it to do some very interesting things. For instance, it will go from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. It will do that at a cost of $120,000, but you can get from 0 to 60 in 3.2, which is... knocking on kind of supercar territory from an electric vehicle. Now, you're going to eat your battery alive, but you'd also eat your gas alive, so whatever. Included in the D, which is that's a performance car angle, and I'm a car guy, and so I think that's great. And I love seeing this kind of performance electric,
he also said, that he had been looking at the McLaren, what was it? The P1 the most recent one.
Yeah, the P1.
He had been looking at the McLaren P1 and kind of wanted to get something like that.
Well, the P1 and the LaFerrari and the Lamborghini that just got announced and the Porsche, that's in the process is out or is coming out are all hybrid supercars. So they have gas engines and electric motors, and basically work like hybrids or Formula One cars. This is pure electric. This has no gas motor. It's also doing some really interesting things with self-driving technologies, or what they call autonomous technologies. And so it has the technologies you expect. It'll park itself. But not only will it park itself, it will, like the Batmobile, come find you. So let's say you pull up. So here's the scenario. You pull up, you get out, you pull up in your driveway, you get out of your car, you walk in your front door. Your car then opens the garage door, pulls itself in, turns itself off, and closes the garage door. Or, in reverse, you walk out your front door in the morning, you tell the car to be waiting for you there. The car will turn itself on, cue up the music, open the garage door, back out of the garage, and be sitting there waiting for you in the driveway. Now, Elon was very careful, who is Iron Man, is very careful.
It's very important to note that the way that he announced this thing was with a giant robotic arm that, like, picked it up out of the ground and, like, presented it to the audience.
Elon Musk views the Iron Man movies as self-help films.
It's like, oh yes, I need to do that in my next announcement.
He's Tony Stark. He just needs to start sculpting his facial hair. He's just Tony Stark. Anyways, rather than Batman. Both of which the ultimate American superheroes. They're the superheroes whose superpower is capitalism, which I love. So the D, has lane keep assist. It will read when it's
I really hope it has lane keep assist with, being able to pull out of my garage.
No, well, it's also interesting. It can read speed limit signs, and so when it's in laser guided cruise control, it can read the speed limit, make sure it's keeping within the speed limit. It has 3.
I don't want that.
I don't want that either, but it's a feature.
Can I set a Texas speed limit thing? Whatever you see that speed limit, plus 5 to 10 miles an hour, depending on the flow of traffic.
Well, I mean, I think in the end, it's a computer. You can tell it to override. It has sonar and radar and image recognition. So it's both a play for performance and a play for autonomy. And all of the Teslas made in the past 3 weeks already have the autonomy technology built in. That's just there. That's just part of the Tesla thing now. And then you can pay a whole bunch more money and you can get the D. So, Jimmy, are you going to be saving up your pennies, your P's to get the D?
Oh, I want my P's to get the D, man. I think this is the one to have of all the Teslas. Basically,
in for a penny, in for a pound.
I mean, he's realizing the dream that was the original Roadster, and that you have this car that is sporty, yet is a car. This is like the Roadster and the Model S made a baby. That's what this is.
Yeah.
This is because it's the same price as the Roadster was, and it's awesome. I want one.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I think that the autonomy is really interesting.
I think it's kind of dumb, but I think it's the right kind of dumb.
Right. It's the kind of, like, if I'm paying that much money for, like, a car,
it might as well have some dumb things.
It might as well, like, be able to pull itself out of the garage so that when, my jerk friends are over and I want to show off, I can be like, hey, well, let's go to I don't know, somewhere fancy that I can buy stuff if I'm rich.
Neiman Marcus.
Let's go to. No, I'm not a woman.
Let's
go to the Apple store. Press a button. The garage opens. The car comes out. We all climb in and we go to the Apple store.
To me, this starts to get towards that Jetsons future that I want, though. Right? That I wake up and just all the things that I have to do just sort of automatically happen. I realize that I'm probably never going to get to the point in life where I can afford a butler. What I want is technology to take over that role.
You want technology to solve your butler problem?
I want to wake up in the morning, thanks to my smartphone, walk into my kitchen, have Cheerios and coffee already made by the smart fridge.
I'm about to try putting my my coffee maker on a timer and see what happens.
Our Keurig's on a timer. It doesn't make coffee; it just warms itself up on the timer. But So you do that, and then I want my car to be waiting for me in the driveway, and then it drives me to work through traffic. This is perfect. Now, this implies that I at some point am not working from home. 'Cause right now my commute several days a week is real short. It's from the kitchen where I made the Cheerios to the studio, where I eat the Cheerios and then start working. It's a hard knock life. Anyways. Someone else kind of making our lives easier is HBO's finally seen sense.
Yes, HBO this week announced a streaming-only option will be offered early 2015. Now, whether that will be HBO Go or something else, they did say that it would not require a cable subscription, which could possibly cause a reduction in Game of Thrones piracy if they did that.
Which I think is part of the point.
That's part of probably the reason why they're doing this. There's a really interesting article that I found on from The Atlantic that kind of describes viewing habits of people my generation, and 24% don't have cable or any kind of cable service. And whether that's they're full blown, that's 18 to 34-year-olds don't subscribe to pay TV. So, and that's a split evenly between cord cutters, those who had cable and got rid of it, and those who just never set it up. And that's from ComScore. But in addition to that, CBS also announced today that they will too be offering an internet streaming service of some kind of all of their programs, not including the NFL. So because they don't actually have rights to that to sell.
Right. Yeah.
That's part of the NFL Sunday Ticket package that DirecTV offers.
Right.
But
which I just want Apple to buy.
And that's really this Atlantic article is kind of talking about the death of, not really the death, but how the cable bundle is kind of coming apart as these internet services fill in for it. And really with HBO moving that way, that opens up opportunities for cord cutters that weren't there before. Because before, to get the HBO content, you either had to pirate it or you had to have a cable subscription.
Okay, so I have been slowly realizing that I live half of my life as a cord cutter. Mm-hmm. And what I've realized is I just want cable. That's all I want. I get that they're terrible companies, but they're all terrible companies.
Yeah, they are all terrible companies.
It is expensive because cable is a single line item that is expensive. All of these streaming services are relatively small line items, but the failure of the American economy in general is small line items add up to one big line item real fast. Yes. So like I pay, and I don't have a real fancy cable. I do have a real fancy cable package, but it's built in my rent. But let's say I'm paying, let's call it $60 a month for cable. Does that sound reasonable?
That's for basic cable plus some.
Sure. Yeah.
I will pull up what Comcast would currently charge me for cable. You keep going.
So let's assume that I'm paying, I think it's probably $60 or $70 a month. So I pay.
And probably for basic cable plus a box is probably set $60 a month.
Okay. So for basic digital cable, so I'm getting my most of the channels I want. And so I actually would get the Sports Plus one so I can get NBC Sports and BBC America. And so let's say I'm in $70 a month. Does that sound like a reasonable assumption to make?
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing, $70 a month. So now let's go over here on the other side. I pay $25 a month for MLB.TV. I pay $8 a month for Netflix. I buy a bunch of seasons on iTunes because that's about the only place I can get it reasonably. Or you can do Hulu Plus at, what is that, $6 a month?
No, it's $8 a month, $9 a month, something like that.
So between Hulu, and we're not even getting into obscure ones like Crackle or, ones that don't, or you got to factor in your Amazon Prime thing every year. You rapidly get close to $60 to $70 a month, and it's a hodgepodge. You add HBO into there, which I guarantee will be $25 a month. Like
it's going to be expensive.
Like MLB.TV. So just between having MLB.TV and which I care about, and HBO, which I wouldn't get. But let's say I did those two things plus Netflix, I've now equaled my cable bill.
Now, to be fair, if you got HBO as part of your cable package, you would also pay not $25 a month, but you'd still pay like $10 to $15 a month for
Yeah.
it.
No.
Same thing for the MLB access. So those are things that cable
but-
companies charge extra for.
But I don't actually care about MLB access. I just the way sports is broadcast is messed up because it's so local and we're not that kind of country anymore.
Yeah,
but that's
people travel
social
so
commentary.
much.
My overall point is this: that you're actually going to end up paying more as a cord cutter to get these things you want. And what cable ends up being is the value proposition, which is what it's always been. You want to know what you're paying for your cable subscription? Mostly is ESPN. Everything else is almost free in comparison to ESPN.
Oh, and the fun thing is with my Comcast cable internet, I get ESPN access.
Right. So, like, yeah. Like, I like the dream of watching any content anywhere. But that's not really what's happening. It's not that people...
Oh,
it's
we're
not
gonna
that you are standing in line. It's not really that you're watching your content anywhere. You're just watching your content in the same place differently. So, cord cutting almost becomes a religious or moral commitment rather than an actual cost-saving measure at some point. It's not always the case. If you're just getting Netflix, okay, fine. But as you start adding these things on, the value tanks. Because you're paying a lot more for things individually.
The other thing is, are you paying for more internet than you would if you were not cord cutting?
Well, me, no, but I stream from home.
But
let's assume we didn't have this life where we stream things out, not in.
Yeah,
you are paying for a more expensive internet plan, and that needs to be factored in too. What really this should be is just all cable packages should be available either on a box or just as a streaming service.
Right. Well, and I think that that's kind of the direction it's going because, like, for example, I logged on to Comcast. I forgot that I was logged in, but it gave me this lineup that looks exactly like, Netflix looked 2 years ago, where it has the bars of shows, but
Back when
in this
Netflix was
case,
kind of usable.
in this case, kind of categorized by Tuesday night shows, Wednesday night shows.
Right.
There's live TV. This is all watch online.
Sure.
So I can go, okay, I have NCIS, all episodes. And so it shows me all the episodes, and I can just play from Xfinity On Demand.
So
That basically is the direction this is going.
Right. And right now, the HBO Play is really kind of
Now,
abstract.
the interesting thing about the HBO Play is that if they are offering the same things through their own website that they offered up to Amazon, they kind of shafted Amazon.
Yeah.
By saying, hey, Amazon, we'll sell this to you. And Amazon was like, oh, yeah, we'll take that. Oh, yeah, and then we're going to announce our own service, too. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, right now, we don't know when this is coming out. We don't know what this is going to cost. We don't know. I think I need to see a lot more concrete details before I can say whether or not this is worth the money or not.
Like price and offering.
Like price and offering, what this looks like. Something that I know I don't like the look of is this week we actually have a comment box section.
I forgot about that sound effect.
Yeah, I made it a long time ago. So, the most recent episode that we did was focused on Gamergate. And so I have spent my life dealing with comments from the Gamergate things, including one comment thread that runs to 39 comments and one that runs to 23 comments. And all of these are multiple hundreds of words. And I've really just been doing scholarly social theory with internet trolls on the internet. One person who wrote into the show who is not a troll is Jacob Santos, or as I like to call him in my head, Jakob Santos, because it just sounds more dramatic.
You just like the name Jakob, don't lie.
I often have teased that I want to name a kid Jacobo the Dwarf. So yes, I just like the name Jakob.
Jakob.
He wrote in with this. And he also has some other things in here, but I'll read them.
Very long.
It's very long, but I'll read the core of it. The problem is that the argument with a minority group, with a minority of a group, does not define the majority. he read an article, crack.com, and something Zoe Quinn wrote. But to me, it would be like saying, well, all Muslims are terrorists because a small minority are. That statement would be insane, and I agree with him. When you address an entire group based on the actions of a few, so me calling out all of Gamergate because of the people who are doing the harassment, you lose that audience and, more importantly, the outsiders who are looking in. The articles and videos I've been watching lately have been fairly minded, then this issue isn't about Zoe Quinn anymore. From my point of view, from what I've been reading, you are saying the same things as the other side. I think it would be better that Zoe Quinn was not associated with Gamergate anymore, but I can't tell people what to do. Thinking about the kind of abuse, I don't think I have that strong a character to handle it. I read that because I think he made a really interesting point. That one of the flaw, and I wrote back to him basically, the flaw in my argument is I do lump those two things in together. But the harassment has been so vociferous, and Gamergate has been at least tepid in their denouncing of the harassment, and even in the comments that I've been reading, they are very deliberately capitalizing on the publicity from the harassment to amplify their point. Because, one of my points is stop shouting, let this go away, let the harassment stop, and then let's have a real conversation. And I've had people come to me in the comments go, no, we need to strike now because people are paying attention. What that actually means is you are co-opting the terrorists to get what you want. And so that's, I admit, I read Jacob's comment because it was very kindly put, and makes a very strong critique of my argument. I do lump them together. Part of why I lump them together is because of that. Is because if you are trying to make your point now, you are co-opting that publicity, and you are complicit in what they're doing, even if that's not what you're doing. Even at this point, if you denounce them, you are co-opting them. And just as we have this discussion, another comment has come through.
If you've noticed Trey typing throughout the show, he's been responding to Gamergate.
It's been. I've also had extended conversations with a YouTube user named Tangy Meringue and one named... Anyways, I'll read a quote from Tangy Meringue. Tangy Meringue and I have been having back and forth about the role of feminism and the harassment and all of that. And some of it has been somewhat fair-minded and some of it hasn't been. But to show you how my week has been going, I'll read you a Tangy Meringue quote, if I can find it. Where is it? Darn it. Have I lost it? No, I can't possibly have.
You want me to read
here we
it?
go. I got it. It's a form of art. There should be no limits. Is rape porn a problem? Or is rape porn harmful? Yes! Yes, it is. Is it a problem? Yes, it's a problem. Human beings understand the difference between fiction and reality. Those who don't are very easy to spot. No, rape porn is a problem. Porn is a problem, really. But certainly, and so my response is, I got a little punchy. There is something troubling about fantasy when that fantasy is turning an entire gender into passive sex objects. Rape porn is deeply culturally troubling. I am not trying to make an argument that there should be censorship or that we shouldn't talk about real issues or that certain themes should not be allowed in games. I think themes of female sexuality have been, on the whole, very unartfully handled to the point of objectification. And so I think game writers need to do a better job on that front. If they want to continue to use that as part of their tool case, it needs to be something that is very carefully considered. And I'm still unsure how fighting back about mean feminists relates to corruption in games journalism. These two, one of these things is not like the other one, but Gamergate has sort of co-opted these two things into one thing to the point where Gamergate made it onto the cover of the New York Times today. Today's cover of the New York Times had below the fold, page 1 below the fold, was a story about how Anita Sarkeesian, who's one of the lead feminist critics of games, had to cancel an event at a university in Utah because of threats of a mass shooting. That people were going to shoot up the lecture hall that she was going to be speaking at because she was speaking, and some of those threats have been tied back to Gamergate. When you are tied to a movement that is threatening mass shootings, you need to consider where your moral chips lie.
Well, then there's also the interesting argument that a lot of people with Gamergate are saying, well, it's freedom of speech. We can say whatever we want. Well, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but are you not taking away her right to say what she wants? By
Right.
saying you're going to shoot up a place where she is giving a lecture?
Right, and when it gets weirder than that, so a lot of this is like there's this argument of censorship. Oh, it's censorship because people keep turning off comments on their feeds because they don't want to get harassed. Oh, they're just trying to censor us. Guys,
Well, welcome to the internet. People
Hey.
turn off comments because they don't want to deal with the trolls.
they don't want to deal with the trolls. 2, you're the majority here. Let's not take this for you as Gamergate as a minority uprising against this evil, oppressive feminist majority. Those words don't even make sense together. What this
Especially
is,
in the context of gaming.
what this is the majority of gamers who are men, trying to reassert cultural control over something that they see as getting away from them. That's the subtext. Whether that's what's happening in your conscious mind or not, that's what's going on here. This is an attempt at the reassertion of patriarchal control. And you can wrap it in whatever you want. But as long as you are associated with the harassers, that's what you're doing. That's what you're participating in. And now I have another comment from Tangy Meringue that I'm going to have to get to after the show.
This one about you're just deflecting my points?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm reading it right now, but right now I need to talk about this week's last call.
So, Trey, tell me about Snapchat.
Oh, Snapchat. So, you know how I've been telling you all along that Snapchat's probably no good and that there's a ton of ways your data can end up on the internet? So, like 13 gigabytes of Snapchat photos have been posted to 4chan because they were hacked out of a Snapchat saving service called SnapSaved. 13 gigabytes, 12 or 13 gigabytes. Now, people have been complaining because only about 100 megabytes the really good naked stuff, but at least 100 megabytes the really good naked stuff has made it out onto the internet because people were saving their Snapchats using a dodgy service, which
Here's a
Snapchat
question.
has been clear as saying is against their terms of service.
Here's a question, though. Can that be taken down under child porn?
Some of it can, yeah. And will
That-
be. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing. A lot of these are underage people. It's terrible. Just look, the internet means that your naked things, if they are stored and transmitted digitally, can get out there. Because the minute you transmit it, not only is your decision-making process involved in it, someone else's flawed decision-making process is involved in it. And maybe you are very careful with your naked things, but maybe the person you're sending it to
No,
won't...
you're obviously not that careful with your
Well, it's
naked
not
things if you're
that
sending them.
careful. But maybe the person you're sending it to won't always be that careful with your naked things either, especially if you're like 17. Odds are that won't be the only person in your life you will ever send naked things to. And so just don't send the naked things.
Text last call, professional advice. If you think about sending the naked things, just go and be naked instead.
Or use a service that only the NSA can see you naked, Skype. Be
Yeah,
live.
no, it's true.
Be live and naked because I mean they can still take screenshots, so just watch out. But it's a little less likely that that'll happen. But in the end, like, make sure you have a trusting relationship with the person you're being digitally naked with. I just, this actually strays into my real job where
Do we need to have like a computer love
Like, the computer
Resurrection.
love. Yeah, because like you need to have a really trusting. Like, I almost think that you should be in person naked with someone before you're digitally naked with someone, because in person naked they can just tell stories, which has been going on for generations. Digitally naked, that stuff can end up on the internet in a second, and has 12 gigabytes of it, or at least 100 megabytes of the good stuff. Not my words. It's all terrible. Maybe just don't be digitally naked. You know, I am an adult man.
Pick and choose carefully who you are digitally naked with, youngins.
If I was a youngin, I too probably would have been digitally naked. Anyone who knew me when I was young would agree with this. If
Trey, you're
sex,
just usually naked.
That's not true. It's factually untrue. I'm not a never nude either, but it's not true. That is not the show title. I am not a never nude. It's not the show title.
That should be the show title.
I am not a never nude. No, but I think it is going to be just don't be digitally naked. So just no.
Just don't be
just because you
digitally
wrote it in the
naked.
doc does not mean I'm gonna. Anyways, on that note, we are done. This show is over. I need to go to respond to Tangy Meringue. If you have any feedback for us, I'm not a never nude. Podcast at textlastcall.com, facebook.com/textlastcall, pinterest.com/textlastcall, or at textlastcall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs. That fell apart there right at the end.
Anything else you'd like to share with our audience, Trey?
Not a never nude. I don't even like denim shorts.
That's everything.